My topic this morning is about expanding your business, empowering your life, and living an inspired vision. And I'm assuming that most of you here would be inspired to do that. Am I correct? So I'd like to start, since I only have 20 minutes, by saying that each of us in this room, regardless of our age or our gender or our background and culture or experience, at this very moment is living according to a specific set of priorities, values, things that are most to least important in their life at this moment. This set of values that you have is fingerprint specific and it's unique to you. And every perception you have, every decision you make, every action you take is based on it. And whatever in that hierarchy of values or set of priorities that you have, whatever's highest on it, whatever's most important, whatever's most meaningful, most fulfilling, you're spontaneously inspired from within to act upon it. You spontaneously want to fulfill that which is most meaningful to you. Nobody here goes to work for the sake of a company. They go to work to fulfill what they value most. Some people have a value on family. Some people have a value on business, some economics, some social causes, some health, some inspiration, some intellectual pursuits. Well, whatever is highest on their value, that is what they're reliable to do. That's what they're committed to. That's what they spontaneously can't wait to get up in the morning and fulfill. If an individual at work, at a company, cannot see how the job description and the responsibilities or duties that they have at their work can help them fulfill what's highest on their value, they won't be engaged. And when they're not engaged, your productivity, or their productivity, drops. Profitability, innovation, the things that people want in a company is affected when they can't see how they're going to do and fulfill what's meaningful to them. If the mission, the vision, the primary objectives of the company or the department that they're working in, if they can't see how fulfilling that mission is helping them fulfill what's meaningful to them, they're disengaged. We have a brain structure, and the brain structure correlates with the value structure of an individual. When a person is doing actions that are high priority and highly valuable and meaningful to them, important to them, the blood glucose and oxygen goes into the forebrain and awakens four functions: inspired vision, strategic planning, executing plans, and the mastery and self-governance. And when a person is not seeing how they can do what's meaningful to them, the blood glucose and oxygen awakens the amygdala. The amygdala is an inner core, older part of the brain that's involved in avoiding pain and seeking immediate gratification. Immediate gratification costs companies, but long-term vision pays. So when a person does not feel that they're fulfilling their highest values because of the disengagement, uninspiration that they're feeling, the unfulfillment makes them go into the amygdala and look for immediate gratification to compensate for it. They want to get online and they want to go look at something else. They want to go shopping. They want to go eating. They want stimulants, anything to get them activated immediately to compensate for the unfulfillment. So if an individual cannot see how what they're doing is helping them fulfill what's meaningful, the cost of going into the amygdala compared to the forebrain is millions or billions of dollars to companies. There's been moments with each individual, if they're fully engaged in a project, it's because in their mind, they're perceiving that whatever they're doing is helping them fulfill what's meaningful to them. Just like children in school, when they can perceive that the classes they're taking is helping them fulfill what's meaningful to them, they're engaged. But if not, they check out. And then they get labeled, and then they get diagnosed, and then they get treated because of disengagement. And we go around labeling people in companies because they're not engaged. The actual job description is less crucial than their perception of it. If I was hiring somebody and I asked them and determined what their highest values were, which I have a system for, which I'll mention in a minute, and I asked him, how is doing this job duty going to help you fulfill what you value most? If they can perceive an association and link between what they're about to do, that responsibility, and what they value most, they can fluently, congruently, in seconds, spontaneously state how it's going to help them. And let's say you had 30 items on the job description that they were responsible for. And I went through each one of those and determined to the degree of which they're congruent with that, how well they can see it's helping them fulfill what they value. If the percentage of that is extremely low, they're going to be disengaged. You're going to have to micromanage them. You're going to have to use motivation and incentives and remindings and add to your human resource department to deal with motivating somebody that's uninspired. And it'll cost, not pay. But if they can fluently answer that question, how specifically is doing this action going to help me fulfill what's most meaningful to me? You won't have to remind them. Because nobody has to be reminded or motivated or incentivized to do what's inspiring to them. Nobody has to be pushed uphill to do what is meaningful to them. So if they can't see how what they're going to do is going to help them fulfill what's meaningful to them, you're going to be distracted from what's meaningful to you, having to manage people that are unfulfilled. That's costly and frustrating. So when I screen people for a hiring process, I take the job description, I take the primary mission or objectives of the company, I determine what their highest values are, and I look at the degree of congruency, and I can tell in advance whether or not that person is going to be productive without ever hiring. I determine the values by a 13-step process. Because if you ask somebody what their values are, what's important to them, I guarantee you after doing 90,000 people, they'll lie. They'll lie to you and they'll lie to themselves. They'll tell you the social idealisms of mothers, fathers, preachers, teachers, and traditions and conventions and ideologies that they have been indoctrinated by and think that you want to hear. They'll say truth and integrity and honesty and peace and all this stuff out there that has nothing to do with what their life demonstrates. Their words mean nothing. Their actions mean everything. So I determine values by a different process. I look at how people fill their space. I worked with Corning Company in New York, and I showed a manager how to observe people's values by looking at their space. We walked into one cubicle, and there were trophies, bowling trophies everywhere. Went into another cubicle, and pictures of their children everywhere. We checked to see if it was the same children or a variety of them. If it was the same children, there's probably family importance. If it's a variety of children, it may be a pedophile there. Got to check. Went to the next person, there's IT equipment everywhere. Another one had awards everywhere. Whatever you fill your space with reveals what's valuable to you. Whatever you look at your personal or in your intimate space, the first 4 feet around you that you most consistently have That tells you a lot about who you are. If you don't know that, you'll project your values onto people autocratically, like a tyrant, and expect them to live in your values, which is futile and fatal in far as business relations. But if you look at how they fill their space and look at the top 3 things they fill their space with, it gives you a great indication of what's really valuable to them. Then you look at their time. People make time, spend time, find time for things that are extremely valuable to them. And we'll look at what they do spontaneously, not because they have to, but because that's what they spontaneously do with their time. That tells you what they value. Then you look at their space, their time, then you look at their energy. When people are doing something that's high in their values, their energy goes up. When people do something that's low in their values, their energy is drained. Would you agree that when your energy is high in the business does more than when there's a low energy? And you can put a knife in the room and it just sits there. So if they're not engaged and not energized, you're costing fortunes. So you look at what they are energized by and what they always have energy for. Energy is infinite once you recognize that it automatically, spontaneously flows out of individuals the second they're congruent. There's no lack of energy to somebody who's loving what they do. The next thing is how they spend their money. They find money, spend money, make money for things that are valuable to them. And the hierarchy of their values determines their financial destiny. So I look at what they spend their money on. Then I look at where they're most organized. In the area of their highest values, they're highly organized. In the area of lower values, they don't get around to doing things. Then I look at where they're most disciplined and reliable and focused. Because whatever's high in their value, they're automatically, spontaneously can be reliable to do. People are only reliable and they're only committed to what they value most. People think in relationships, oh, commit to me. No one's ever committed to you. They're committed to what they value most. So finding that out is crucial, because if you give them a job description and allocate jobs to them that's not aligned with their values, you're going to frustrate yourself. You're going to falsely label them out of not knowing what their values are. Then I look at what they think about most, about how they want their life that shows evidence of coming true. If there's no evidence of it, it's fantasy. If there's evidence of it, it's something committed to. Then I look at what they visualize about how they want their life. If you're not asking what their vision is, that vision may be incongruent with where you want to go. And knowing what they envision about how they want their life that shows evidence coming true tells you what they're really committed to. And then I look at what they talk about to themselves. Their internal dialogue is a reflection. So what is it that they say to themselves about how they want their life that shows evidence of coming true? Then I look about what they want to converse with people about. People come up to you and say, oh, how's your children? Or how's business? Or how's your investments? Or how's your golf game? They reveal what's valuable to them because they keep wanting to converse about it. Then I look at what inspires them and brings tears of inspiration to them and what's common to the people who inspire them. Because that tells you a lot about what they're inspired by. And if you've got people who are inspired and energized in your business, you're going to go farther than if you don't. It can make a difference of expanding the business, empowering their and your lives, and you can live an inspired vision that way. And people want it. You fulfill your vision if you help other people in the company do theirs, and that's the management of hiring people that are congruent. You get to fulfill your vision because you're helping them fulfill theirs. So you look at what inspires them. Then you look at what are the most consistent, persistent goals that they have that they are demonstrating evidence of coming true. The 3 most consistent goals that they have been pursuing. It tells you what they value. And the last one is, what is it they love learning about, studying about, reading about, watching YouTubes about? What is it they want to feed their mind? Because that tells you what they value. If you answer those 13 questions, you'll find a repeating pattern consistently coming up on it. And the one answer that keeps showing up the highest is the highest value. And their identity revolves around it. Their purpose is an expression of it, personal purpose. And what you can rely on them to get done is always related to that. And if you hire anything to do anything that doesn't match that, you're going to label them, blame them, and you'll have anger and aggression. blame and feelings of betrayal, criticism, challenge, despair and depression, a desire to escape and exit this person, frustrations and futility, grouchiness and grumpiness. You're going to have hatred and hurt towards this person because they're not matching what you project, because you have a value system yourself. If you don't know what their values are, you don't know how to communicate effectively. If you're selling to somebody, you have to find out what their values are to be able to sell. If you're selling an idea for employees, if you don't match their values, they're not engaged. Same thing at home with your spouse or your children. Everybody wants to be fulfilled and loved and appreciated for who they are, and who they are is an expression of what they value most. So identifying that is, in my opinion, one of the most crucial things a person can do to get the most productivity out of an individual or group or a team in a company. And to care enough about the person to not hire them if it doesn't match. And care enough about your company not to fill in something out of desperation or need, but to make sure that there's a degree of congruency, so there's a maximum potential and opportunity, because they are going to want to automatically see a young boy who loves video games. Would you agree? The second they master the game, they want to go on and find something that's more challenging to go and do. They're looking for challenges that inspire them. They want to take on a bigger game. Leaders are people who pursue challenges that inspire them, and that's a sign of congruency with highest value. And so the more congruent you get the people when you're hiring them to match that, the more they want to innovate and take on their role in their company division, and they want to lead and innovate and create things. Genius and creativity spontaneously emerge in a mind that's pursuing something they value. Pursuing challenges that inspire them is one of the most powerful things to activate innovation. And they spontaneously want to innovate. They're not afraid to take leadership. Leadership spontaneously emerges to the degree of that congruency. So you give permission for them to be a leader and to innovate and to take command of that part that they're doing. But it's about making sure that they're congruent in the initial process. And if for some reason they slip through the cracks, you can also ask questions to initiate a link. How specifically is doing this job going to help you fulfill it? And if you answer that question 10, 20, 30 times on each job description over a 2 or 3 hour period, you can take somebody that's sitting there and plateauing and break them through the plateau and get inspired, because once they can see it on the way, not in the way, they can take your company on the way. There's nothing holding a human being back when they can see that what they're doing is bringing something that's meaningful to their lives. They spontaneously emerge, and the very person you once labeled becomes somebody extraordinary, because people are extraordinary when they're liberated by the freedom to be themselves. Human beings want to be loved and appreciated for who they are, and that's who they are. So we can expand our business by incrementally making sure that we care enough about the person, just like our customer, to hire somebody that is truly inspired to do the job that we want to release. And if we don't fill our day with high priority actions that inspire us, our day fills up with low priority distractions that don't. And if people are not engaged, they're not going to fill their day with high priority actions that inspire them. And so we hold our company back and hold our lives back and our own vision back. It's when we go into the amygdala that we lose our vision and perish. When we go into the executive center, we regain our vision and we flourish. Our brain is set up for foresight, to mitigate risk and to solve problems way in advance the second we live in a congruent state. And we're automatically living in the lowest heuristic of trial and error by hindsight, and we live in our amygdala like an animal, trying to avoid pain and challenges and trying to look for the easy route for immediate gratification and hedonism instead of a eudaimonic purpose in life that's absolutely inspiring to us. So the key is to be able to give ourselves permission to do something extraordinary by giving people permission in our company to do something extraordinary by living as congruently as possible. So I just wanted to share this one little point about human values and how they can impact a company, and to make sure that you consider that when you're doing the hiring, when you're inspiring teams, when you're communicating and delegating, anything that you do. I think it's to our advantage to take that into foresight for the sake of our customer. Because would you agree, when a customer experiences somebody who's engaged, it makes a difference in their life? That's it.